Welcome to the Cougar Tailgate, where BYU fandom lives. Here's your hosts, Sydney Carlson and Cole Wissinger.
Good afternoon, Cougar fans, and what a down and up and up in that order week it has been since we've talked to you last. My name's Cole Wissinger, sitting with Sydney Carlson, and BYU basketball, the roller coaster that we had at the beginning of the season that we thought had stabilized for us.
It continues on, Cole.
It returned. Everyone scream, put your hands in the air, because it was a weird week.
It was a very weird week.
On the post up, he backs down Child, sees a double from Jake. The whip to Ratino up high, a steal Haas. Haas breaking it away. Haas to the rim, takes contact, reverse lay-in, good. There could have been a foul there. It wasn't called. But what a scooping reverse lay-in score by TJ. 79-77, BYU within two. The Cougars had a great comeback at St. Mary's to get to overtime. Can they do the same or more here?
And Greg Wrubell, I believed as well. This loss didn't feel real until later that night because it was a weird afternoon game. And I mean, personally, when I was watching the game, I left to go get food when we had a giant, 15-point lead. And when I came back, all of a sudden BYU wasn't playing right and we were down, but it seemed like we were coming back and it just seemed like it was going to work out. And then it didn't.
So what you're saying is it's your fault we lost because you abandoned the team?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my plus minus while watching the game was at least plus 10, right? It's just when I wasn't in front of the television that they were losing.
One of the most striking things about this game to me is it feels like San Francisco saw what we did last Saturday and said, you know what? We could do that. And we got karma to come back and slap us in the face real hard.
BYU got BYU'd.
BYU did get BYU'd. And it's funny, San Francisco has done this to us before. In fact, last year, I actually pulled up a game from last year thinking it was this year on ESPN.com. And last year we played a game against them where at one point we had a 98% chance of winning and we ended up losing it by 7 points. So they seem to take great joy in tearing our hearts out.
Yeah, this year the highest it got was 94.1. So
yeah, not bad. No big deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so and last year BYU loses to San Francisco twice. They're going to try to not have that happen again this year. But you look at how they did it, right? And it was on the back of just a shining performance by Shabazz. 10 for 10, 32 dang points. And every time you were just, as a BYU fan, every time he gets up there and you're hoping for just a miss, it did not happen. And as a San Francisco fan, that has to be the most confident feeling because we've had players do that too, right?
Jake Toulson did that
in the other game we're going to talk about. Exactly. And but when it's coming up against you, it's just such a different feeling.
Yeah, it's got to be the hair, right? Shabazz's hair.
Goodness,
he just feels really good. He's just feeling really confident in himself in all areas. It doesn't feel as good when that 10 for 10 is on the other team. It feels a lot better when it's on your own team. But 10 for 10 that never happens. That is a very impressive outing.
And the run that they went on, as a BYU fan, I would like to go undefeated. But that
Sure.
San Francisco team felt like they deserved to win that game by the end.
Oh, they took complete control.
Yeah, they just had control at a time. And even when BYU was kind of starting to come back, they just shut it down at every opportunity. And it ends in a 1-point game, but really it kind of shouldn't have, because when BYU had the chance to hit the free throws to bring it close enough for a last-second 3 to matter, they didn't do it. And then that last-second 3 happened, but when you're down by 4 and then the buzzer happens, math is not on your side.
100%. I was just trying to see, maybe breakdown in the stats somewhere where there may have been a breakdown, but where we've struggled this year, offensive rebounds and in the paint, it was pretty even across the board stats-wise. It was just that San Francisco got hot at the right time. They just timed it so well, which is unfortunate.
You look at the stats kind of mirroring each other and being really similar. BYU, in the first half, it was 45-38 in BYU's advantage. Right. In the second half, it was 45-37 in San Francisco's advantage. So they scored 1 more point than we did in the half that they weren't as good, and that is your 1 point.
That's all it takes. They did outscore us at the free throw line 90% to 70%. 70% is not
again,
good.
Down the stretch, it was those free throws that were
They're
gonna
so
matter.
crucial. They're so crucial.
Well, despite things not dropping for the Cougars when they most needed to in San Francisco, it was a very different story on Thursday night.
And the rebound to BYU into a transition triple. Toulson, he got it again! Jake Toulson, 5 threes, 5 for 6. Once again, he's Jake to make. 17 points for Toulson, and BYU by 21, 64-43.
And he wasn't done, man. Jake Toulson was hitting everything. BYU scores over 100 points for the first time. We're going to be talking about revenge games later on today because St. Mary's is on the schedule. San Francisco will be on the schedule. Gonzaga will be on the schedule. But, like, the revenge tour started, right? You could feel that they didn't... Something wasn't off for the team as well after the San Francisco loss. And poor Pepperdine was just next in the way. And BYU just took it out on them.
Yeah, it feels like it's not quite a revenge game, which I think we're going to talk about a little later, but it felt a little bit like a rage game, if you will.
There's a better word for that. Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're not going to allow what happened to us Thursday happen tonight. And I mean, I've been around BYU athletics my whole life. Since I've been working in the athletic department, I've been at every home BYU basketball game. And I don't think we've scored over 100 points at home since I've been here in the last 3 years. And I just remember, it's funny, we have a corporate partner, Jersey Mike's, who runs a promotion at the games that if BYU scores 90 points or more, that you get a free mini sub the next day.
Hey.
And like, it's a super, like, it's such a like generous offer. And we're looking at like last year, and that happened twice last year at home that we scored over 90 points. And I'm like, 2 times a year? Yeah, we can absolutely do that. It's happened 5 times this year so far.
Poor Jersey Mike's.
And we were joking just as a staff, like, so what happens if we hit 100? What about 110? Like, they just kept up in the game last night. It was really fun to watch.
We can go on another tangent for a second then. Utah State, the state of Utah fans will know that the Jazz also have a similar kind of weird thing that shouldn't happen, right? Chick-fil-A will give you a free, at one point it was a sandwich, if it's super specific, so it seems like it should never happen. But for home games, so you cut all games in half, in the fourth quarter, when the opposing team has to miss 2 free throws in a row. Like, they go to the line for 2, and they miss both of them.
Right.
How many times do you even have home games where the opposing team is at the line, like, and then to miss 2 of them? Seems like it should never happen. Just last week, it happened 2 nights in a row.
Ooh,
and
yikes.
So Chick-fil-A went from offering a free sandwich to free nuggets to then it was just like...
A drink.
Because they did not anticipate that happening, because statistically it should not.
Yeah. No, it's true. We have a similar promotion with Wallabies, but it's only in the second half, and it's the same thing. It's got to be back-to-back free throws, and I think it's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times this year, and it's never happened back-to-back to my knowledge.
That's normal.
So, yeah, it's funny, those things that you don't really think about as, like... As the fan, like how it impacts the corporation. In fact, that same Jersey Mike's promotion, we had fans that apparently went right after a game. I want to say it was the LMU game, and were banging on the door after the game, even though it very specifically said like
the
tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're like, "Where's our sandwich?" I'm like, poor Jersey Mike's.
Calm down. You got some free stuff.
You.
You'll be fine. But you get free stuff because 107 points
107
to 80 in the Pepperdine Waves. And Pepperdine's not the bottom of this conference. They're like in that middle chunk that BYU was dangerously sitting at for a cool second right after San Francisco. Yeah, and then the Cougars asserted themselves back up to the upper echelon. Yeah. Right, record-wise, things look similar, but BYU proved that they deserve to still be in that tournament conversation.
It's true, and the games this year have been especially strange. There's a headline in the Deseret News that says, "In a game of wild runs," and it's true because in that San Francisco game, and now in this Pepperdine game, and in several games this season, there have been long stretches of like 16-0 runs. BYU at one point in this Pepperdine game was up by like 23 points. And then suddenly, I remember sitting there at the game just feeling like, oh, we've got this in hand. And I swear I looked down and looked back up and we were up by 5. And I was like, wait, what happened?
I thought that this was an established...
I thought we had this in hand. And they tend to like finally bring it out, but yeah.
Well, you look at like the plus minuses or whatever. It's not a specific dude that's like not doing his job every time. Like it's just the team in general can't seem to be consistent all at the same time.
They go through a hot streak or a cold streak, and they are consistent in those streaks.
Consistent in inconsistency.
100%.
But the thing is, these gaudy numbers, they can't trick us, guys. Like this February and March is about guarding. You know, I'm telling you, like, we cannot be tricked by these numbers. We're going to come in here on Saturday night, and this is going to be a slugfest against a great team that's already proven they can win a conference tournament championship in this league, that's really veteran and that's playing great right now. And if we come in here thinking, hey, we're just going to bang a bunch of shots, that is not what's going to win us the game. What is going to win us the game is us getting stopped, and we just got to live there. We got to stay there.
When we come back on the Cougar Tailgate, we will be getting to know today's opponent, the first stop on the BYU revenge tour from the WCC losses so far. It's the St. Mary's Gaels, and their play-by-play man, Alex Jensen, will be joining us. That's coming up next. Welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. I'm Cole Wissinger. Later tonight, BYU has a rematch with St. Mary's, the two teams that went to overtime earlier this year in Moraga. Tonight, the game is in Provo. So we're getting ready for the game the only way we know how here on the show. You invite an expert in and ask them about mascots and food and other useless stuff. Alex Jensen is the radio voice of the Gaels basketball and a graduate of St. Mary's College himself. Welcome into the Cougar Tailgate, Alex.
Cole, thanks for having me, man. Good to be here.
All right, so we will get to who you think will win later tonight, but first the important question, what is a Gael?
A Gael, this is probably a popular question amongst the rest of the West Coast Conference especially, but a Gael is, for St. Mary's purposes, it's an Irish knight. Okay. So that's the layman term. Now, technically a Gael is kind of like the Boston Celtics, where it's a culture in ancient Ireland, the Gaelic culture, much like the Celtic culture. But for St. Mary's purposes, it is an Irish knight. And actually, if you want to dive further into that, the baseball team at St. Mary's, and maybe even the college in general, used to be known as the Phoenix a long, long time ago, like early 1900s. I know the baseball team adopted that nickname until they discontinued the program and they picked it up again in 30, 40, 50 years ago. But the baseball program in particular, I know this because I played baseball at St. Mary's, but the baseball program in particular in the 20s and 30s and even before that was known as the Phoenix. I'm not sure about the whole school. I don't think it was. I think they've always been the Gaels, but the baseball program has also been known as the Phoenix. But yeah, the short of it is that a Gael for St. Mary's purposes is an Irish knight.
Gotcha. And so do you have a mascot that is an Irish knight that goes around?
You know, if you've seen the movie Braveheart, our mascot is a little bit like Mel Gibson.
You got Mel Gibson, all right.
Braveheart. Yeah, exactly. There used to be, when I was in school, there was like a big inflatable guy wearing armor. And actually, our old school mascot, which you'll see we wear a red uniform. So actually, we wore them last time the Gaels played BYU, but there's a guy galloping on a horse, which is an old school logo, which when St. Mary's used to have football, which was, they discontinued football in 2004, they were known as the Galloping Gaels, and that was the mascot used quite often. They're starting to bring that back, kind of trickle it back a little bit more. I think it's an awesome throwback logo.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a throw, and it kind of feels like a crest, right? And that adds to that old Gaelic tradition look to it. I love it.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. If you look at the logo now, especially, I mean, I think this logo was the SMC intertwined with the G shield. I'm pretty sure it came out around 2006 or 2007, but they wanted to make it like an Irish pattern. I'm not exactly sure what the official word is for it, but yeah, the crest looks. I'm a fan of it, to be honest with you.
So, Gael is spelled Gael, but you also got the student section there that kind of does the play on words with Gale Force, right?
Right. Right, that is correct. And that is also spelled Gael, but yeah, it's kind of a double. It's fun, like going around to all these schools, especially in the West Coast Conference, and checking out what the student sections are called. I know at BYU they have the Rock.
Uh-huh.
I think the one at Pepperdine's pretty clever. It's called the Riptide. I think the Fog Zone at USF. The Rough Riders at Santa Clara. Obviously, you got the Kennel at Gonzaga. It's cool to see the different iterations of what schools come up with. But yes, that's good knowledge. The student section at St. Mary's is called Gale Force.
And so do you have any, and I mean, you're the right one to ask because you were a student once upon a time yourself. Are there any other cool traditions that the students bring to the games that you think are unique to St. Mary's?
Oh, unique to St. Mary's. I really can't think of anything, Cole. To be honest with you, before Randy Bennett, there's not a whole lot of tradition to this program. He took on, and I'll get into the X's and O's for a second and kind of a longer-winded explanation here, but
sure.
Randy Bennett took over the Gaels. They had been to 3 NCAA tournaments in a long, long history, dating back to the beginning of the NCAA tournament. They were 2-27 the year he took over, so there wasn't a whole lot of interest in this program, at least at the time that Randy Bennett took over, especially after 1997 when the Gaels were coached by Ernie Kent, who ended up at Oregon and played Tim Duncan the first round of the NCAA tournament. So I don't really know many traditions. I think the traditions now are kind of being built. The Australian tradition, whenever an Australian makes a basket, the PA announcer will do the Aussie chant, Aussie, 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 and the crowd will follow with oi, oi, oi. That's about it, man. And actually, over the last 5 years, we've started a tradition of right around Australia Day, whichever home game that is, we'll play the Australian national anthem. We'll call it Australian Heritage Night. We'll hand out T-shirts coming through the door. But yeah, I mean, it's not a program with a rich, deep tradition. It's building one, certainly, ever since Randy Bennett arrived.
Absolutely.
But we're kind of getting there.
Well, I love that you went there, and I appreciate the history too. That Aussie pipeline is, when I think of St. Mary's, that's kind of what I think of. Go ahead and go into some of the players that NBA fans or just college basketball fans will remember from St. Mary's. Some of your favorite interviews over the years, or just the guys that St. Mary's are known for.
Sure. Well, the two that are going to stand out to most people are Patty Mills and Matthew Dellavedova, who both won an NBA championship. Patty Mills was actually a freshman when I was a senior, so I remember the impact that he had on the program. I mean, he was kind of a game changer, for the St. Mary's basketball program. He was really the first NBA type of talent. The first prominent Australian was back in the early 2000s. His name was Daniel Kickert, and he is still playing. In fact, before Matthew Dellavedova broke the scoring mark at St. Mary's, Daniel Kickert was the all-time leading scorer at St. Mary's. And he was the first prominent Australian. The first Australian came way back in 2001. Randy Bennett was just looking for an extra player. He had a scholarship to fill, and a guy by the name of Adam Killpack was looking for a place to play. And at that time, Australians didn't come to the United States to play very often. Well, Adam Killpack came, loved his experience, told Daniel Kickert about it. They became teammates. And actually, Adam Killpack ended up being a coach at St. Mary's up until about 5 years ago, and now he's the head coach of the Australian Center of Excellence there, which is where a lot of the best players, Patty Mills, Matthew Dellavedova, Jock Landale is another one that a lot of BYU fans
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, exactly. Emmett Nahr is another one. So there will be more Australians to come for sure. But some of my favorite interviews, Emmett Nahr and Dane Pineau, is a 1-2 punch, just in terms of just off the floor comedy, man. Those two guys, dry sense of humor, right up my alley. Those Emmett Nahr, Dane Pineau, two of the funniest guys I've met in my time at St. Mary's.
I'll go back, look them up. Hey, and when I did my research, I came across a name that I recognized as a film fan. Some guy named Mahershala Ali played basketball for the Gaels.
He sure did. He was there in the mid-'90s, I believe, or maybe it was late 80s, yeah. But he still gives money back to the school. He was on the Ellen Show about a year ago, and the fund that he decided to donate to was a fund at St. Mary's College, a scholarship fund at St. Mary's College. And most of the students at St. Mary's College are actually on some form of financial aid. So he still does give back to the community. I know he's kind of stepped away from basketball a little bit, but yeah, that is that's very good knowledge. He did indeed play basketball at St. Mary's.
I mean, that is the MCU's future Blade that has St. Mary's ties. I love finding stuff like that. so the West Coast Conference was kind of born there in Northern California, but as someone that's only ever been to San Francisco, like on vacation once to get a bread bowl, could you kind of give us an idea of what the geography, like where's Moraga sit next to Stockton or San Francisco or the other, or Pacific, that area?
Sure. So Moraga is actually, I mean, as the crow flies from, it actually shares a border with Oakland, which is on the east side. It's obviously right across the bridge from San Francisco.
Right there.
There are hills that run along the east side of Oakland, north to south. Moraga is on the other side of one of those hills. It's in between Oakland and a suburb of Oakland called Walnut Creek, which is a bigger town, Walnut Creek and Concord area. So it's right there in between the two. The campus is really tucked away. It's beautiful. If anyone listening to this, if you ever get a chance and you like walking college campuses, St. Mary's is, and I'm biased, of course, but it's a very unique place because it's tucked in between these hills. It's got old Spanish architecture. All the buildings are old Spanish architecture with the white stucco and the red tile roofs. But it's just a beautiful place to go on a walk, on a hike. There's plenty of hiking trails in the mountains outside the campus there. So Stockton is about an hour east of Moraga, San Francisco about a 45-minute drive west, if you include traffic, of course. And then Santa Clara would be about a 45-minute drive south, which Santa Clara is basically in San Jose. I actually grew up in Oakland, and St. Mary's was probably, as the crow flies, the closest Division I college to my house, even though Cal was right there as well. So it's right there next to Oakland, between Oakland and a city called Walnut Creek, which a lot of people will probably be familiar with.
You mentioned, again, being a student at St. Mary's. I want to get just your favorite memory as a fan of basketball in all your time rooting for the St. Mary's Gaels. What's the most vivid one?
There's a couple of them. My first year there, I came to St. Mary's as a transfer from junior college to play baseball. But when I was there, our whole team would go to the basketball games. It was like an event. There's not much to do in Moraga. It's kind of a bedroom community. So we would go to the basketball game, every single home basketball game. My first year there, we beat Gonzaga. And, that was when Gonzaga had, Josh Heitfeld, and this was just after Adam Morrison had graduated.
Right.
And St. Mary's was up by 7 or so, and everyone was so excited that we rushed the court before the final horn sounded, with like a second and a half left. So
Oops.
Gonzaga, there was a technical, Gonzaga got free throws, and then we rushed the court again. So that was one of them. The other one was Patty Mills' coming out party. This is when I was a student. St. Mary's hosted Oregon, who was number 10 in the country at the time, and Patty Mills went off for 37 points, and it was really kind of his, like I said, his coming out party of being a superstar. And then there's one more, and this is just all at St. Mary's. The Sweet 16 run in 2010, of course, is number one in terms of team success. Mm-hmm. There was an NIT game in Moraga in Patty Mills' sophomore years last year at St. Mary's. So I think it would have been the 2009 NIT when Davidson came to play at St. Mary's. So you had Steph Curry on one side and Patty Mills and St. Mary's on the other side. And, for those of you listening who have never gotten a chance to go to a basketball game in McEwen Pavilion, it is unlike anything I can explain to you. I mean, it's a 3,500-seat gym, but it gets unbelievably loud in there because the roof is so low. There's just nowhere. So for a big game like that, where you got that type of buzz when BYU or Gonzaga comes to town, I highly recommend taking in a basketball game at McEwen Pavilion. University Credit Union Pavilion now.
Right. And we take a lot of pride in our Marriott Center around here, but there's just...
As you should.
There's a different vibe, though, and especially in your gym. I watched the last game that BYU played there on TV, and it almost looks like a horseshoe kind of effect to how the fans are sitting, and you got like a big old... the Jumbotrons just on the wall over on the one side. It's such a cool... And, like, the rafters look low. It's a good look.
Yeah, you know what? Mark Emmert, who's the president of the NCAA, came to the game when St. Mary's played Gonzaga either last year or 2 years ago. And I remember our AD says this all the time, Mike Matoso. He said, Mark Emmert told him, this is how college basketball should be. Like, this is what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
A small gym, people pack it in. Everyone's real passionate about the Gaels, It's definitely unique. I mean, the Marriott Center is, it's one of my favorite places to call a game. But you want to talk about fan passion? The fans at BYU are as passionate as anybody in the country. Same can be said for the folks in Spokane at Gonzaga. I did a game at Dayton a few years ago. That's a lot like BYU or Gonzaga in the way they package it. But, yeah, University Credit Union Pavilion is, you mentioned, it's like a horseshoe. There's more bleachers on the sidelines. There's a small VIP section sitting above one of the baskets that's about 5 or 6 rows deep. And then, you have the wall. And actually, there was a plan about 5 or 6 years ago to knock that wall down, put seating in. They could never really get the schematics going, though. Like, it just didn't work out. So now they have a different renovation plan. It's not going to add more seating over there, but it's going to add some extra experiences for the student-athletes as well as the fans. I think they're going to be putting an outdoor patio on that side, and they're going to kind of spruce it up a little bit. So it won't look different on TV. It'll be a better experience, a better game day experience, and a better experience for the student athlete.
Yeah, more stuff to do. That's really cool. All right, last question then before I let you go here and let you get your prep on for the game, because you're going to have a busy night in front of you as well. I always ask before you go what you expect to see tonight for this basketball game between St. Mary's and BYU.
Well, I mean, so obviously we didn't get to see Yoli Childs in the last matchup. I thought that was a game, though, that St. Mary's could have won by 12 or 15. I didn't think the Gaels played great in that game at home, which is odd. And they were kind of going through a transition period, losing their starting center and really trying to figure themselves out. So they kind of let BYU, hang around and then get back into the game at the end. St. Mary's had a 9-point lead with like 3 minutes left. BYU came back and forced overtime.
Somehow it goes to overtime, yeah.
Right, somehow it goes to overtime. It's a fantastic game, and every game featuring the Gaels and the Cougars seems to be, it's just a great game every single time. This is a huge game for both teams. I think BYU might need this one a little bit more than St. Mary's does, especially in terms of the West Coast Conference standings. When you look at BYU, they're 1 game behind St. Mary's right now. Mm-hmm. But let's not kid ourselves. When it comes down to March, every game right now is so important. And for either one of these teams, actually I think this would be a quad 2 win for BYU, but for the Gaels, and looking at it from St. Mary's perspective, you can't afford to – and the St. Mary's had some very good wins, right? They beat Wisconsin. They pounded Arizona State. They beat Utah State, as did BYU. They beat Nevada, as did BYU. They beat San Francisco on the road. But these are type of opportunities that don't come around all that often in West Coast Conference play. So I think, the 3 games remaining, looking at it from St. Mary's perspective, the 2 games against Gonzaga and the 1 against BYU, I think St. Mary's wins one of those games. It doesn't slip up. The rest of conference play, easier said than done, of course, and I think they're looking pretty on Selection Sunday.
Close game and 2 NCAA kind of teams. That's what we're hoping for on this end as well. When you look at the WCC as a whole, St. Mary's, BYU, Gonzaga, and any combination of them getting together, it's always an entertaining one for the fans.
Without a doubt, man. I love the West Coast Conference. I've been in it for a little while, but adding BYU is just such a, it just adds so much more, especially to the basketball season.
Alex Jensen is the play-by-play man for the St. Mary's Gaels, and we appreciate you coming on the show today. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man. Maybe I'll see you out at the Marriott Center.
I hope to. When we come back on the Cougar Tailgate, Sydney and I will be discussing just how BYU normally fares in that second game of a series in their WCC history. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Into the Cougar Tailgate. I'm Cole Wissinger. Sitting over there is Sydney Carlson, and we'd like to thank Alex Jensen coming on, teaching us a little bit more about the St. Mary's Gaels as we prepare for tonight's basketball game at the Marriott Center. Show up, folks. It'll be fun.
It'll be a great game, and games against St. Mary's are always fun. I think in the Marriott Center, especially if we can pack the house, it'll be loud, it'll be ruckus, and I think I'm looking forward to a close game.
Yes, with a certain team ending up on top. Because you hope that the second time you get them, you know a little bit more, right? It's sure. That concept of Andy Reid coming off a bye week. And oh, yeah. Hey,
what, is there a Super Bowl this week or something?
Something else going on. Let's take a tangent before we go into the rest of our revenge and BYU stuff. Because Andy Reid's coming off the bye week. BYU's own, along with Danny Sorensen on the roster, against Fred Warner and the San Francisco 49ers. Sydney, who you got?
In my heart, I want it to be the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
I really don't. Not sure I could give you a strong reason. I did meet Andy Reid when he was here for Media Day. Yeah. A couple years ago.
He had the BYU Hawaiian shirt. It was blue instead of his normal He just has 100 of them, so.
Super nice guy. And I just have always really rooted for him throughout his entire NFL career, even when he's back with the Eagles, even though Eagles fans are insane. Sorry, Eagles fans.
They are. They own up to it.
I find his style of coaching and like watching what he's able to do with, I don't know, various talents and teams, like to be really intriguing. Like the Eagles and the Chiefs, I mean, they're different feeling teams in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he doesn't have like a truly identifiable, that's an Andy Reid team, because
there's not like an Andy Reid system.
Well.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really fun to watch him coach and his teams play, and I love watching Patrick Mahomes play football. I think I've talked on this podcast before. I don't have an NFL team. I grew up here. We don't have an NFL team, so I can't claim a hometown team.
Right.
The closest, interestingly enough, me growing up was probably the Niners, because my dad liked to root for Steve Young. Mm-hmm. So he really rooted for the Niners growing up.
Common around these parts.
Sure. And so really who I root for are people that I just love to watch. And that happens to be Patrick Mahomes. I also love watching Danny Sorensen play and BYU players, but you've got one on either side. So it's like, how do you choose?
And they're both on the defense. And I've learned over years of watching football even though it's a different game, right? An offense is fun, and a lot of the rules favor the offense, that even now, defense still does win championships more times than not. When you look at the Super
100%.
Bowls where the number one offense played the number one defense, defenses are undefeated. And the 49er defense is better, I think, than what the Chiefs offense could be. I am similarly rooting for Andy Reid, because the guy for so long early in his career had the stigma that he can't win the big game, and all of those 3 NFC championships in a row.
Yeah, that's what lost him the job in Philadelphia, is people got tired of him never kind of finishing.
And then Chip Kelly got him where? Eagles fans, come
literally
on.
Nowhere.
Exactly. So we love Andy Reid, but I think I'm going to pick the 49ers, because I think I don't root against the defense.
I can see that. I definitely can see that. I will say, part of my emotional reaction to who I want to win is that, where you been, San Francisco 49ers fans? Where you been the last couple years when your team has been? And there's been a couple fans that I know of that have been true 49ers fans through the downtimes. Yeah. But man alive, are there a lot of them now, and they are loud, and they are not fun to talk to on Twitter.
This is also a Utah thing, because my one other friend that I have made since moving here to this beautiful state that grew up in Utah has a similar just distaste for 49ers fans, more so than any other fan base. And I think that's the fair weatherness that you get to have by not really having... Like, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. You were either a Steelers fan or you made a conscious decision to not be a Steelers fan, which means you rooted for the Cowboys or the Patriots and you got beat up on Sundays. And that's just the way things were. But here... Oh, the Broncos are good. Let's root for the Broncos for a bit. The Raiders are good. Let's do the Raiders thing. You know, you got some options around. Like my buddy who grew up in southern Utah is a Cardinals fan, has been for his whole life. That's what he roots for.
Yeah.
But they all hate the Niners fans because they just kind of come and go.
They've gotten so loud. Yes. So insane. We actually, Tom Holmoe encouraged everybody in the athletic department today to, rep their colors. Didn't matter which it was, but just wear a jersey to work.
Gotcha.
We had one Chiefs fan,
nice
one
jersey
49ers fan. I know. I got that
sweater.
Right. I'm wearing a pink sweater, remaining neutral. The only time I've worn a jersey to work was right after the Red Sox won the World Series, because my boss is a huge Yankees fan.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually borrowed it from someone. But it's funny. It just is kind of epitomizes Utah sports culture, because we had one Kansas City jersey, and it's a coworker who grew up in Kansas City. We had one 49ers jersey, someone who will remain nameless, who I feel like fits the where have you been? Where have you been? 49ers fans. And then just Skittles, every color of the rainbow. We had a Chargers jersey. We had a Broncos jersey, a Steelers jersey. It was all over the place. A Jazz jersey. Somebody showed up in a Rudy Gobert jersey. It was like, what? He just got named to the All-Star team. What do you want me to say?
It just kind of seems wrong to show up to work at BYU, though, wearing red. And both the 49ers and the Chiefs are...
It's true. It's actually kind of an unspoken rule that thou shalt not wear red
Yeah.
if you work in the athletic department.
You know what other team wears red? St.
Yeah,
Mary's.
segue. Look at that segue.
I'm
zing
so
zing.
good at this. So BYU plays St. Mary's later on. Wait, so did you pick a team? Are you on the record? Niners or Chiefs?
I'll take Chiefs. You took Niners, I'll take Chiefs.
Perfect. That's what I like to hear. Conflict. Okay. So BYU plays St. Mary's tonight, and I went back and I looked. I don't know if there's anything particularly interesting here, but I did the research, and I just want to share it with the people because since BYU has joined the WCC starting right after Jimmer, right?
Okay.
It's a very clean line to kind of put on things.
2011.
So 2011 to 2012, BYU has a winning record throughout the WCC. That's easy to see. But you also, once I was actually writing down all of the wins and losses, particularly the losses because there's less of them to count, you start to see some patterns. First pattern that I noticed is that in the past 5 years, this year included, we have played St. Mary's in the first weekend of WCC play. January, first week of January, first 3 or so games, we get St. Mary's on the schedule. And since WCC play has started, including this year, Gonzaga is either our last or second to last game on the schedule as well.
Yep.
BYU always starts against St. Mary's. They always end against Gonzaga, and it's been to mixed results. The main thing I wanted to look at, and the main storyline we kind of want to have today, is the idea of revenge, because that San Francisco game was rough, and we've got San Francisco again on the schedule in Provo. Gonzaga was rough, but we've got Gonzaga again in Provo, and tonight it's St. Mary's in Provo. And you look and it does make the difference that they make it out to be. There's years, look at 2014 specifically, so 13-14. We had losses to LMU, Pepperdine, Portland, and Gonzaga. On the road, we beat them all at home. It was just, that's the split. We did it again in 2016 where you lose to St. Mary's, Portland, Pepperdine. You lose on the road, you win at home. So when people talk about, assuming wins or kind of getting an extra half a point or whatever when it's at home in college basketball, that has proven to be a thing.
Oh, it's real.
In BYU.
I would say, too, with BYU more so than any other team in the league, and we've talked about this before, there's something to be said about just the size of our venue. Even if we fill the Marriott Center halfway, we're still doubling what some of those other schools are hitting attendance-wise. And I think that's a big jump. Even just the sheer size of the Marriott Center has got to be a little bit intimidating, especially if you have guys who are maybe freshmen and never have played in the Marriott Center. The first time you step onto that court, it's got to be a little bit daunting. And so that's an advantage that we have over everybody else in the league. And that's definitely I don't know. Is it cheating? It's not cheating. We got a big arena. It's an advantage.
It's an inherent advantage that comes with it because, again, you get into that mode of WCC play. And BYU gets just every other game coming back to the Marriott Center, but all the other teams are playing in all the other small arenas until it's BYU.
Yeah. It's interesting that it seems, though, that BYU has been almost more successful in Spokane some years. The years that we do beat Gonzaga, it seems that it's in Spokane rather than at the Marriott Center, whereas our home court advantage is so strong against the other teams. I like, too, that to me, it's almost like the league is saying something by putting BYU and Gonzaga as the last schedule, game of the schedule every year. Even though a lot of years it's been Gonzaga and St. Mary's up at the top, by putting us as kind of the finale year after year, I don't know. It makes me feel proud in a way. Just we're an important game. We are the finale. We are the grand finale.
And they're doing it for good reason. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of the WCC, Gonzaga's only swept us 3 times. BYU's gotten that revenge game later on in the season, or they picked up the early one, or whatever it is. We've split with Gonzaga 5 out of the 8 years that we've been here.
That's pretty impressive.
And considering, we love BYU, but Gonzaga has been objectively better as a basketball team every single year that we've been here.
Gonzaga's still Gonzaga. Yeah.
Other teams do not have the kind of success that BYU does, and so that's why we get that primetime in the schedule, primetime in the year game.
What is our split with St. Mary's? I feel like we haven't done as well against St. Mary's.
Yeah, St. Mary's has a couple more sweeps. It was in 2018, 2017. Those were both sweeps. Then we did a split, and BYU got the sweep in 2014.
Ooh.
St. Mary's got a sweep in 12 and 13. Yeah, actually, BYU's got a worse record against St. Mary's than they do against Gonzaga.
That's what I remember, which is so crazy. St. Mary's just seems to have our number. I don't like it, but that's the way it has been. So, revenge game, boys, tonight. That's what we got.
And that's what we're going for. And if it's going to happen, it's going to be that home court advantage that BYU brings to it. When we come back, we're actually going to talk to the marketing coordinator here at BYU that kind of comes up with some of those fun fan interactions that make a trip to the Marriott Center so much more than just the basketball game that we all love to watch. That's coming up next on the Cougar Tailgate. Welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. I'm Cole Wissinger, and that over there is Sydney Carlson. And earlier this week, Sydney, you got a chance to talk to one of the people behind the scenes. Everyone loves the basketball environment, but you don't take a minute to think about all the things that go into the production of a live game.
100%. Yeah, I got to talk to Anna Killpack. She's a marketing coordinator with athletics, and she's actually like my partner in crime in a lot of ways. We do anything. She explains it later on as like anything that's not the game that happens in the game, Anna's in charge of. And on a smaller scale, anything that has a corporate sponsor on it, I'm in charge of. So it was fun to kind of pick her brain a little bit and talk to her outside of like that coworker dynamic. But she had a lot to say about like what makes the games exciting for the fans. So, Anna, give us just kind of a quick background on what you do day to day.
So day to day, well, so my overall job is game production for football and men's basketball at BYU. So what that entails is basically how I describe it to people is everything that you see and experience at a game that isn't the game. So when cheer's out on the field and they're leading in a cheer, I have some involvement in that and coordinating when they're going to go out on the field. Things you see on the video board, timing that out. Promotions you see down on the field, halftimes, giveaways. I work with all the different entities that organize that so that we are all on the same page and that the game experience runs well for the fan.
Totally. And you mentioned kind of all the different moving parts, but how many people do you think you coordinate with on a weekly basis?
Oh, man. A lot. I coordinate with, cheer, Cougarettes, band, the AV OIT group, which is a handful of different groups within that, the corporate sponsorships group, my own students that run things down on the field. I have a student that runs music. I coordinate with the person that sends out the timing sheet that goes to TV. A lot of different groups, a lot of different people.
It takes a village to make a basketball game happen.
Very much so.
What would you say, why do you think that your job is important to the game day experience?
So I think the reason my role is important is because my biggest focus is the fan. So each of those entities specializes in something that I don't specialize in. So I don't specialize in AV and what's going to look good on the video board. So I rely on them and their expertise hey, this is how it's going to look. This is how we can make it look better. Same thing with, the band. They know how things are operating. The music person, they all specialize in their own thing. And my focus is on the fan experience. So I'm trying to think of things from the fan experience and coordinating all of those groups to optimize the fan experience. So sometimes that means, one group has to change what they're doing slightly, or 2 or 3 different groups have to collaborate in a different way than they are maybe normally used to because they're only thinking of their expertise.
So when you look at, we're heavily into basketball right now, right. But when you look at a basketball or a football game, what are some fan experience things that you've been a part of that are really memorable to you or that you're really proud of?
Yeah. Specifically with basketball, one thing when I came into this job a couple years ago is whenever, this is really small and probably most people don't notice it, but that's okay. It's not meant to be noticed necessarily by the fan that anything's different. But we would sing the fight song 4 times before a game started, which was fine. But the problem is most people don't show up to a basketball game until 5 minutes before tip.
Right.
So you're playing the fight song with about 5 people standing up singing it. It was always just terribly awkward. And I was like, oh, I hate this so much. It just feels so awkward. And so mid-season last year, we took out a lot of the pregame fight songs. And we used to have cheering Cougars come down to the court at 20 minutes prior to tip-off when the team came out, and that's like about the 20-25-minute mark. And same thing, it was just I felt so bad for them because they're down on the court trying to like pump people up, and there's no one in the stands. And so it was more just I felt bad for them than I did for the fan. And I was like, hey, like we could revamp this, we could make this better. And so we decided to kind of cut all production in terms of like lights and cheer and Cougars and kind of like that pump up style production until when the team comes back out on the court at 4 minutes on the clock when the arena's a little more full. People are usually kind of walking in, so they're already on their feet, like just a overall better environment there, especially when it's like your bigger games with your bigger opponents and there's a good attendance. You can kind of feel that like energy build right up until, and like it kind of maintains up until tip-off, which is really nice. So that's something that I was kind of proud of with basketball, is kind of just looking at like what the current situation was like, okay, how can we make this better? So we call it Let's Get It Started. And what we do is at that kind of like 5-minute mark before the team comes out, we play Let's Get Started by Black Eyed Peas. Right. Lights go down, cheer and Cougars come down the 4 corner stairs, and they're throwing out T-shirts, and we've got spotlights going. We do crowd shots. And like I said, especially on those big games, it feels really good in that arena because people are up, they're moving, they're singing. And then the team comes out about a minute after, we sing Fight Song, and then everything just kind of keeps rolling from there.
For sure. Talk to us a little bit about halftime. Like, what do you look for in halftime performances?
Whatever fans are going to want, that's what I look for. So last year, we brought in Red Panda for the first time, and one of the only reasons I reached out to her is I didn't even know she existed before that, but she just blew up on social media, and everyone was just raving about her. I was like, well, better bring her in then. I just look for, what are fans, what's going to engage the fans, and what are, just what's entertaining.
Totally. True story. My sister-in-law, if anyone brings up Red Panda, she uses the word life-changing.
Really?
She loved it that much.
Wow.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
It's a good performance. I won't lie. I really like the Simon Says one because it involves so many fans like down on the court. And then obviously it's just entertaining because he's just funny, and it's a unique halftime show. It's not one performer. It's someone that's engaging a group.
100%. What would you say is the most stressful part of your job, and then after that, the most rewarding part of your job?
Okay. Most stressful part is that, so I don't know how else to put it other than I have all the control, but also no control. So I am the one that is like, okay, go video, okay, go cheer, okay, we're going to do this and move this here, and, calling the entire show. But at the end of the day, I'm not actually doing anything. I'm not the one out on the court. I'm not the one pressing the button for the video board. I'm not the one choosing which song we're going to play. So that's by far the most stressful part. Most rewarding part, honestly, it's kind of cheesy. More when I was a student down on the court that I saw this. I don't get to see it as much anymore, which kind of stinks. But, it's just the best when you, play a video that you, really, spend a lot of time on and you really enjoy, or you have a promotion that you're like, oh, the fans are really going to enjoy this, and, you're able to, turn, rather than looking at the field, you're able to turn and look at the fans, and you see them, 100%. And they're excited. Or, when I was down on the field of football, I used to always keep, pom-poms or stickers, in my pockets, because there was always little kids that would stand on the edges waiting for a player to come and high-five them, and to be able to turn around and hey, you want a sticker, and give them a sticker, and it just makes their day.
Yeah,
it was so fun just to see the fans' reactions to all the hard work that you put in.
I love that. And what do you think makes BYU kind of unique? I mean, obviously we stand apart in the WCC, but what are you able to do here that maybe you wouldn't be able to do other places?
I mean, we obviously have a very unique fan base, just being very religious. If we're tied to a religious university, we're tied to a religion, and so often that means that their priorities are not necessarily different in a bad way, but you go a lot of places, you go see a Duke, basketball is their religion. Football down the South, that is their religion. They spend hours and hours and hours, and here we have a religion, is how I kind of explain it. We have religion, so it's while yes, we're fans and we're dedicated, it's a different kind of dedication, different kind of loyalty. And so sometimes it's fun to be able to focus, find unique ways to attract our fan base and to entertain our fan base, because it's definitely a different mentality. we're very, very family-based. So a lot of things we do, it's like, okay, how can we tie this into a family? We've got to consider that we're going to have kids at the game. We're going to have, mom and dad have 6, 7 kids. How can they afford to bring them to a game? How can we make it affordable for them to bring their entire family to a game? It's not like, oh, this is going to break the bank. We can't afford this. We want it to be something that it's a family activity. It's a family tradition. And what can we do to accommodate that? Totally. And that was like part of Cougar Canyon. That's what we do with basketball, with halftime shows, and with just about everything we try and do. We do Ticket Tuesdays a lot for basketball, which is like usually $5 tickets, so it makes it very affordable for families to come.
The last thing I'll ask you about, so you've actually been asked to run point for the WCC tournament.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a huge job.
It is.
Maybe for fans who are considering going, talk to them about maybe some things you're excited about that you're planning over at the WCC tournament.
Absolutely. So if you've been before, it will be a very different show. I'll preface with that. The commissioner reached out to my boss, David. I'm the director of marketing here, and she was just like, hey, we're spending all this money and I'm not getting the product that I want. Can you give me the product that I want? She's like, I've been to your guys' basketball arena. Obviously, within the West Coast Conference, we have an incredible facility. And so she was like, can you make anything happen? And he said, yeah, we can do something. So that's kind of how I got the job. And so looking forward to a lot of new things that we haven't seen before. That's just a lot more fan focused. So your timeouts are going to be, we'll have our sponsorships, we'll have your on-court promotions, but there'll be more engaging things going on the video board. So you'll have replays going on. You'll have your fan cams, a little more involvement with an MC that'll be there that I'm really, really excited about. That'll be really engaging. We'll have some cool lights, and hopefully I don't have the go ahead on this. I don't know if I want to say it, but cryo and pyro, which is flames and smoke effects for entrances once we kind of get down to the semifinals and finals games. So just overall more production value added to the game experience.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank
I know
you.
You're busy. We literally just finished laying out 15,000 pom-poms at the Marriott Center.
Yes.
So thanks for taking the time and telling us a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Just one more reason to make the trip to Vegas and see the Cougs in the WCC tournament. It's got even more of a BYU tie than maybe you normally would have. So Anna's excited about the stuff that they're going to be doing at the tournament, just bringing the fans in more than it has been in the past. So should be a good little weekend. And it should be a good weekend because BYU should do pretty good in the tournament as well. It's been a good year so far. I mean, fingers crossed. We can only control what we can control, but I'll tell you, one thing y'all didn't get to, I think, is something that has kind of brought that marketing and the people that go into the stadium around, that atmosphere a little bit recently, is all of these really heartfelt tributes to Kobe Bryant after he and his daughter passed away over last weekend. And BYU had something to do with that as well, that I assume y'all in your department put together, right? Yeah, so it was kind of Anna's team that really was the brainchild behind it. But they talked about a bunch of different things and what they wanted to do and wanted to keep it kind of low-key. I mean, obviously we don't have a real personal connection with Kobe, but he means a lot to fans of basketball and sports in general. Mm-hmm. And so what we ended up doing was pregame, we stopped the clock at exactly 8 minutes and 24 seconds, and we had laid out cards in the rock and then a little bit in the lower bowl. And at 8:24, the front half of the rock had number 24, and then the back half had number 8. And they held it up, and then we put a 24-second clock on the video board, and we dimmed the lights, and there was a yellow light all over the court. And we just held a moment of silence for 24 seconds with a picture of Kobe and his daughter up on the screen. And it was pretty touching. Having it be a really low-key, there was no PA announcement. The cards had instructions. So it was just solid, kind of respectful moment of silence. And I don't know, it was definitely a touching moment. And you can trust basketball fans to kind of figure that out. Sure. You don't need to be told, and you don't need to ruin the moment sometimes, because everyone that comes to a basketball game, everyone that's ever just watched basketball in general has this reverence for one of the greats, and to see him go too soon, everyone's kind of together on that boat. Yeah. Some of those impromptu tributes were some of the ones that really hit me the hardest. Yeah. My little brother says I have tear ducts of glass, but there definitely were some tears shed when I saw these guys are competitors, and even when something tragic like this happens, they're going to want to play their hardest and they're going to want to win the game, but sometimes you set all of that aside and you just take a moment to say, hey, something has happened and it affects us all, and we're going to just take a moment to recognize that. And it's pretty powerful when it's coming from, these athletes that we sometimes revere as like gods on the court.
They're larger than life, but even in their own lives, there's things that are bigger than basketball, and to see everyone come together. That's what I got out of it, is that we all miss Kobe now. The ones that played with him, the ones that he was a mentor to, and then those of us that just watched him play for our entire lives, or even kids where even if they didn't see him live, like Kobe is Kobe.
Right. He is a mythic being almost.
Yup. That wraps us up here on the Cougar Tailgate today. It was a pleasure to talk to Alex Jensen of St. Mary's College Athletics, and then also we got to hear from Anna Killpack a little bit behind the scenes of what goes into that basketball game day experience when you go to the stadium, when you go to the Marriott Center and are a fan there, as we encourage everyone to be at the game tonight against St. Mary's. It is 8 o'clock Mountain Time that you can be there. You can catch the Cougar Tailgate every Saturday at 12 o'clock Mountain Time. That is 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 o'clock Pacific. We're also available just anytime you want to catch us on the podcast. That's iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Google Play. Or, if you have another strategy for finding your podcast, even BYU Radio, you can get us there. We are a production of BYU Radio. My name is Cole Wissinger, and that is Sydney Carlson. Go Cougs!